Hi everybody, welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. As you can see, I have a new spreadsheet. This spreadsheet is called Timeline America 250. We have entered into what I think is a very special time in the history of the church, the history of the world, and of course, I think it has to do with the Second Coming. And in my mind, it really started with the bicentennial or the 200-year anniversary of the first vision back in 2020. This year, we're celebrating the 250th anniversary of the United States, and it seems like the church views it as a very important anniversary. That's mostly what we're going to talk about in this video, is what the church is doing. And I have some rows that are hidden here. I want to cover the different stories and then show you everything that the church has done so far and is planning that we know of. Including a special fast that was just recently announced. And we're going to talk about jubilees because, in a sense, this is a jubilee. I'll explain more in just a minute. But yeah, so the 200th anniversary of the first vision, the 250th anniversary of the United States. Next year, we have the rededication of the Salt Lake Temple. And then in just 4 years from now, we have the bicentennial of the church itself, from the time that the church was established in 1830. So let's first talk about jubilees. In the Bible, there were these cycles where essentially each year was equated to a day, and every 7 years was equated to a week, and they were called Shemitas. And then when you went through 7 weeks, or 49 years, the 50th year was a jubilee. So that's the classic idea of what a jubilee is in the Old Testament. But in modern times, there are other conceptions of what a jubilee is. So let me just show you a few of those. This is my spreadsheet called Timeline Jubilees. I'm not going to focus on these ones to the left. We're going to look at these ones. So the first one is the Joseph Smith Jubilee, or the Joseph Smith Shemitah. I don't know what to call it. He called it a Jubilee. But essentially, this was first introduced with the dedication of the Kirtland Temple, which, by the way, was the 7th year of the church. The first year was 1830. The second year was 1831. So on until 1836, which was the 7th year. And I have the quote right here. This comes from one of Joseph Smith's journals. You can find it on the Joseph Smith Papers website. There's the reference at the bottom. Savior made his appearance to some, while angels ministered unto others, and it was a Pentecost and endowment indeed. Long to be remembered, for the sound shall go forth from this place into all the world, and the occurrences of this day shall be handed down upon the pages of sacred history to all generations, as the day of Pentecost. So shall this day be numbered and celebrated as a year of Jubilee, and time of rejoicing for the saints of the Most High God. Now, if that was the only mention of a Jubilee, you may have assumed, oh, yeah, okay, so he's just kind of saying that in like a celebratory sense. You know, it was the dedication of the first temple in this dispensation. But this same concept resurfaced 7 years later. So not 50 years later, 7 years later, in 1843. Let's read this really quick. So we got, let's see, this is also from a journal. You can find it on the Joseph Smith Papers website. Thursday, April 6, 1843. The first day of the Jubilee. So again, this is only 7 years later. I don't know much more about the doctrine of this new type of Jubilee. I have no evidence that it continued after 1843. But we had it 2 times. Once in 1838 and once in 1843. And April 6th was the first day. Okay? So it's recorded in his journal. It's also in the journal of, at the time, Elder Wilford Woodruff. And as far as I know, It didn't continue, but maybe the brethren have continued to keep track of this. So if it had continued, you can see column O, you have all the 20th Jubilee, the 21st, if it had continued. It's interesting to note that the 21st, which is 3 times 7, the 21st Joseph Smith Jubilee, or Shemitah, landed in 1976, the bicentennial of the United States. And then if we fast forward to our own time, the 27th happened in 2018, starting on April 6th of 2018. This is the same year that President Nelson became president of the church, although that happened a few months before the Jubilee started, but it was in the same year. The year before was the 2017 Great American Eclipse. And then 2024, we had the next Great American Eclipse. And then in 2025, on April 6th, started the 28th Joseph Smith Jubilee. And President Oaks became president of the church during this Jubilee year. And in fact, we're still in the Jubilee year. If it's meant to go, 365 days, it's going to continue to go until April 6th of this year. So from 2025 until 2026, it's not going to go until July 4th. That's when the bicentennial is, or the sesquicentennial of the United States. But it still touches this year. So that's interesting. That's very interesting. You had it back in 1976, the 21st Joseph Smith Jubilee, and then you have this one that is touching this year, and President Oaks became president of the church during this Jubilee. I don't know, just pointing it out. Now, we have some other time frames that have been referred to as Jubilees, such as the founding of the church. I'm pointing this out because I've seen a number of examples where church leadership have referred to just 50-year periods, whether it's the founding of the church, the first vision, the year 2000. And so I feel like it would apply to the different anniversaries of the United States, this one being the 250th. But let me just show you really quick. I have some quotes here. So when we're talking about the founding of the church, and we're looking at the year 1880, 1880 General Conference was a Jubilee conference in a very literal sense. On the 6th of April, 1880, church members celebrated the 50th anniversary of the organization of the church. They called it a Jubilee year, as the ancient Israelites had named every 50th year. President Taylor forgave many of the debts owed to the church by its needy members. The church also contributed 300 cows and 2,000 sheep to be distributed among its deserving poor. The church's Relief Society sisters donated almost 35,000 bushels of wheat to those in need. President Taylor also urged church members to forgive individual debt, especially among the distressed. Quote unquote, "It is the time of Jubilee," he declared. A spirit of forgiveness and joy was strongly felt among the Latter-day Saints. So in a very real way, they observed the Jubilee. Maybe not exactly how they did in the Old Testament, as far as like returning lands and stuff like that, but debts, yes. And they actually celebrated it as a Jubilee year, like in a more, I guess, modern sense in this last dispensation. Think about that and what the church did with the donation of all these things as we go into the stories I want to show you, the articles about America 2050, and why I think that this is actually a really important and special year, especially when we take into account the other events surrounding it, like the rededication of the Salt Lake Temple, the bicentennial of the church, so on and so forth. The year 2000, I'm just going to point out really quick, Elder L. Tom Perry of the Quorum of the 12, he referred to the year 2000 as a Jubilee, the coming year of Jubilee. So in one sense, it feels like the church just refers to significant 50-year anniversaries or multiples of 50. Okay, so from here, before we get into what the church is doing right now and what it plans to do for America 250, I want to point to something that happened during the United States bicentennial. This article is a Wikipedia article titled Missouri Executive Order 44. And that was something that was signed by Lilburn Boggs. By the way, I didn't know until I moved to Independence and started my Explore Church Sites channel that he had two homes here in Independence. He didn't have both of them at the same time, but he lived in two different locations in the downtown area, historic downtown Independence. Here's a marker for one of them. This is the closest one to the public square. And then there's another one that you can walk to. It's a little ways. But, and by the way, with the second location, it turns out that, what's his name? Porter Rockwell or Orrin. Oh my gosh. Orrin Porter Rockwell, Joseph Smith's bodyguard. He was at one of those locations, and he was imprisoned because he was accused of trying to kill Lilburn Boggs. But anyway, Lilburn Boggs, he's the one that signed the extermination order, and you could blame him for being the one to drive the Saints out of Missouri. Well, later on, it wasn't until 1976, the 21st Joseph Smith Jubilee and the bicentennial of the church, that the extermination order was rescinded. It says here, in late 1975, President Lyman F. Edwards of the Far West Missouri Stake of the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, now known as Community of Christ, invited then Missouri Governor Kit Bond to participate in the June 25th, 1976 annual stake conference as a goodwill gesture for the United States bicentennial. As part of his address at that conference, 137 years after being signed, which, by the way, the Kansas City, Missouri temple is the 137th temple of the church. And it turns out that the number 137, specifically 1 over 137, is a critical number in physics that is credited with allowing life to exist. If the different measurements observed in nature were off by just a fraction from 1 over 37, it's called the fine structure constant. If it was off by just a tiny bit, life would not exist. I feel like there's something to that. Anyway, 137 years after being signed, inciting the unconstitutional nature of Governor Boggs' directive, Governor Bond presented the following executive order. And you can actually see it here. I mean, think about this. The extermination order, which allowed for the killing of members of the church if they didn't leave the state, it was still on the books until 1976. But here it is. Whereas on October 27th, 1838, the governor of the state of Missouri, Lilburn W. Boggs, issued an order calling for the extermination or expulsion of Mormons from the state of Missouri. And whereas Governor Boggs' order clearly contravened the rights to life, liberty, property, and religious freedom as guaranteed by the Constitution of the United States, as well as the Constitution of the state of Missouri. And whereas in this bicentennial year, as we reflect on our nation's heritage, the exercise of religious freedom is without question one of the basic tenets of our free democratic republic. Now, therefore, I, Christopher S. Bond, governor of the state of Missouri, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the state of Missouri, do hereby order as follows. Expressing on behalf of all Missourians our deep regret for the injustice and undue suffering which was caused by this 1838 order, I hereby rescind Executive Order number 44, dated October 27th, 1838, issued by Governor Lilburn W. Boggs. And then he signed it. So these are the reasons why I'm looking at this year in America 250. It feels like something big is happening. It felt like the year 2020 was really big because of the 200th anniversary of the first vision, and it feels like this goes along with it. We all know the importance of the United States in regards to the church being restored. The United States exists, and the form of government exists and was inspired so that the church could be restored. America exists because of the church. If it wasn't for the church, there probably would be some country or collection of countries here, but it is how it is because of the church. You understand? So, with that being said, let's move into what the church is doing so far and the implications, because there's a couple things that caught my eye that I thought were really interesting. Okay, this is a newsroom article, November 13th, 2025. So before this year even started. Church members in United States to celebrate nation's 250th with service and gratitude. As the United States prepares to commemorate its 250th anniversary, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is collaborating with America 250 in recognition of the freedoms established through the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. America 250 is a nonpartisan congressional commission working to engage every American in celebrating the nation's 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. The church will collaborate on initiatives focused on service, family history, and music. Quote, this is from Elder Gong. As we mark this historic milestone, we hope to foster a spirit of unity. By the way, I should have highlighted that because this is something that comes up over and over. And remember, unity is very closely related to the concept of Zion being of one heart and one mind. I think not just as a church, I mean, definitely as a church, but ideally with people outside of our church. We hope to foster a spirit of unity, or you could say Zion, peacemaking, and goodwill. The anniversary is an opportunity for all to come together, serve together, and express gratitude for the freedoms that have allowed all faiths, including ours, to flourish. And then it has one of these semi-trucks that's involved in what the church is doing with delivering food, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but this is what it looks like. Rosie Rios, and this is her right here. Rosie Rios, chair of America 250 and former U.S. Treasurer, as well as America 250 commissioners Kathy Gillespie and Lynn Forney Young, were in Salt Lake City for the announcement. Rosie Rios said, "This is truly a historic moment for all of us. What we just saw in our tour of the Bishop's Central Storehouse reminds us all why we do what we do. Although technically, yes, we are celebrating the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, I think this is really, for me, a moment of unity, not just independence. It's unity here in what the church is doing. Or you could say Zion. It is Zion here, what the church is doing. What the church has always done and what the church continues to do." Later on, Elder Michael A. Dunn, at General Authority 70, noted that the church was founded in the United States in 1830. And we just said that the church celebrated a jubilee 50 years later. Quote, "Thanks in great measure to the religious freedoms established by the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. It's really fitting that as we prepare to celebrate the 200th anniversary of the founding of our church, just 4 years from now, we join today with other faiths and other organizations this year to commemorate this very pivotal moment in our nation's history," Elder Dunn said. Another picture of the Just Serve, America 250 church trucks. Okay, and then later on, and there's Rosie in the cab, in a cab of one of the trucks. Later on, let's see, I thought I had something else highlighted here, maybe not. Okay, so that was kind of the kickoff with Elder Gong and these food trucks, but we're going to focus in on the food trucks for a second. This is also newsroom. The first truckloads of food donations from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to 250 food banks across all 50 states have been delivered commemorating the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Now, remember, during the first Jubilee of the church in 1880, the 50-year anniversary, that's what the church did. It donated a bunch of food and necessities. And they're doing it for the 250th anniversary of the United States. It's interesting. They haven't used the word Jubilee for this, but they're doing kind of the same thing in a sense. At least as far as food donations go. Okay, continuing. A send-off was held for the first 5 semi-trucks loaded with shelf-stable food at the Bishop's Central Storehouse in Salt Lake City, Utah on Thursday, November 13th, 2025. So again, the church started this before 2026, just a month and a half before the beginning of the year. The Church of Jesus Christ is collaborating with America 250 to recognize the freedoms established by the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. In Michigan, FISH, it's in all caps, so I don't know what it stands for. Probably says it somewhere else. In Michigan, FISH of Grand Blanc received one of the first deliveries. You guys remember what happened in Grand Blanc, Michigan, the day after President Nelson's passing, right? Grand Blanc was chosen as one of the 5 cities to lead the initiative in recognition of the community's remarkable support after the September 28th tragedy at the local church meeting house. Church leaders highlighted the compassion shown by neighbors, first responders, and interfaith collaborators throughout Oakland and Genesee counties. The truck wrapped in the justserve.org and America 50 logos delivered 40,000 pounds of food donated by the church, including canned fruits, vegetables, and meats, pasta, flour, pancake mix, and dried milk. Most of the goods are produced by the church and funded by member donations. The other organizations receiving the first truckloads of food include Food for Lane County in Eugene, Oregon, Family Resource Services in Lenoke, Arkansas, the Food Bank for Central and Northeast Missouri in Columbia, Missouri. I don't know if that was intentional because of Missouri, but I like that it was one of the first 5. So you had Michigan because of what happened after President Nelson's passing. And then they also have Missouri in the mix. And then it says Galveston County Food Bank in Texas City, Texas. Okay, so we have this. We have the 250 food banks in all 50 United States. And you have these food trucks that were sent out by the church. Okay, and then, so that's one thing that I put on the spreadsheet. This is church news. Latter-day Saints in Idaho serve others to honor United States 250th. So this is in Idaho. And as far as I know, I may have missed something, but this is the first, aside from the food trucks, the first service project that the church has done. It says, as part of the celebration of the 250th anniversary of the signing of the United States Declaration of Independence, Latter-day Saints in Idaho joined in several recent efforts to serve those in need. On Thursday, January 22nd, volunteers gathered in the Idaho Capitol in Boise to assemble hygiene kits for schools across the state. So This is the first activity of the church that I know of the year for America 250. Is this thing at the Idaho State Capitol building, the hygiene kits. And then something similar, this was February 23rd. Sharon Eubank joins Just Serve and community volunteers in America 250 project in California. You are leaders in service. Sharon Eubank, Director of Humanitarian Initiatives for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, told volunteers on Saturday, February 21st, 2026, after an America 250 food truck sponsored by the church delivered an estimated 40,000 pounds of food to the South County Outreach in Irvine, California. A local group of the Knights of Columbus from Laguna Niguel, Latter-day Saint young adults, and Just Serve youth volunteers from several high schools joined together to sort and organize the boxes of food. So this had to do with the food trucks, but it more had to do with the unloading of the food trucks and then organizing the boxes. So Idaho, California, and now Family Search. This was mentioned before. Remember, that first article said, where'd it go? It said that the church was going to focus on service, family history, and music. And by the way, it's the music part that I'm kind of excited to share with you, but we're getting to that. Family Search announces participation in America 250 celebration. Family Search International announced today its collaboration with America 250, the official celebrations for America's 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, with the release of a new webpage and an invitation to, quote unquote, discover your family's place in American history. Just so you know, this is what the article is letting us know. That has already launched. I'll put the link for this in the description box below if you want to check it out. Discover your family's place in American history. And then it has all these different things right here. So make sure to check that out. Family Search America 250 is a new webpage launched for the national celebration to help show that every family has contributed to the American story. It includes links and invitations to explore the Family Search family tree, record a story, nominate an American hero, get help at Family Search Center, and find answers to frequently asked questions. In addition, throughout 2026, select Family Search centers and affiliate libraries across the United States will offer America 250 themed experiences, including, and there's a bullet point list. The first one is assisted discovery for ancestors who lived through significant historical eras of American history. The next one is access to free genealogical records, immigration, military, census, local histories. The third one, activities for youth groups, schools, and community organizations. The fourth one, hands-on help adding family stories, photos, and memories to the Family Search family tree. And then the last one, free personalized guidance from trained volunteers. More information is available at Family Search America 250. Okay, so we got Family Search. So we've talked about the food trucks and service projects, and now the new Family Search website and these different activities that they're going to do throughout the year and services that they're going to provide. And then we have the Tabernacle Choir. The Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square is part of America's Soundtrack, a national music collection created to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776. The project's initial release includes a choral rendition of Battle Hymn of the Republic. Now I have that in red because I think it was part of the inaugural ceremonies when President Trump became president of the United States. There was one ceremony or gathering where this was played, Battle Hymn of the Republic. And the thing about Battle Hymn of the Republic is it's about the second coming. At least, I think pretty much the whole thing. At least the first, at least the first part. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. It's been a while since we've talked about it, I think, but for a while there, we were really focused on Isaiah. I can't remember I think it was chapter 40, maybe, verse 5. I can't remember, but it was a scripture that was used a number of times that talked about the glory of the Lord at his coming. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He hath loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. And then after that, the chorus has the word hallelujah. And we talked about that word recently. It shows up a couple times in Psalms, but they don't, in like the King James Version, they don't leave the original word. They just say, praise the Lord. But they leave the original Hebrew word in the book of Revelation, where it's talking about the wedding feast being prepared and being ready. Hallelujah. So in my mind, yes, it's a patriotic song, but it's also a second coming song. So I like how that's being mixed in with all of this. It says one of the choir's most recognized and frequently performed works. No, makes sense. We're in the last dispensation. The restoration of the church was to prepare the world for the second coming. And the main choir of the church, I hope that they're singing about the second coming a lot. And Battle Hymn of the Republic. Yeah. The collection is being organized by America 250, the national nonpartisan organization charged by Congress with leading the celebration and commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Quote, music unifies. There's that word again. Music unifies us in a way few things can, said America 250 chair Rosie Rios. As we engage all 350 million Americans in the 250th anniversary of the United States, America's soundtrack will give us a powerful way to connect through a shared cultural language, music. Okay. And then it says, the choir has a storied history with Battle Hymn of the Republic. In 1959, their performance of the classic hymn earned a Grammy Award in the Best Performance by a Vocal Group or Chorus category. And the choir performed the song during its Songs of Hope World Tour in venues across the United States and around the world, the southeastern US, Mexico, and the Philippines. All right, so we have that as far as music goes. And then the most recent development, and probably not the last. I say that because I wouldn't be surprised if in this general conference and or the October general conference, if we have more that has to do with America 2050. Not necessarily the celebrations, but just commemorating the 250th anniversary of the United States. This is just one more thing to think about as we go into this next general conference. I wouldn't be surprised, would you? And isn't it fitting that our prophet has his legal background, and he was a Utah Supreme Court justice, and he has a counselor that also has a legal background, President Christopherson. Maybe they were reserved for such a time as this, as we're celebrating this milestone, and who knows what's going to happen. First Presidency invites U.S. saints to participate in united fast of gratitude for religious liberty. The fast is scheduled for Sunday, July 5th, which makes sense because they probably don't want people to fast on July 4th. It's meant to be a day to be celebrated with family and friends and with barbecues and good food and things like that. So they're like, let's do it the day after. And by the way, I was going to say, I have video of what the Independence Visitor Center typically does every July 5th is they have a fireworks display the day after the 4th of July. This year is going to be, if I remember right, on June 26th because of the FIFA World Cup. And I think because The 5th is a Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check really quick. Did I just read that? Sorry. Yeah, July 5th is a Sunday. Okay. But let's go back here and let's read this letter from the First Presidency. Dear brothers and sisters, the United States will celebrate the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence throughout 2026. A new video will be available on churchofjesuschrist.org, in which President D. Todd Christofferson and Elder Quentin L. Cook will offer instruction about the significance of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and related events that enabled the restoration of the church. All wards and branches in the United States are invited to use this video during a 5th Sunday meeting on May 31st to discuss the importance of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and how these documents support religious freedom and our God-given agency. I tend to think that as we move forward, there's going to be more attacks on religious freedom. That very well may be why we have the prophet that we do and his counselor, President Christofferson. Time will tell, but I feel like this is going to be one of the big things of President Oak's presidency. Continuing, additionally, on Sunday, July 5th, 2026, all are invited to participate in a unified fast to express gratitude for religious liberty and to pray that it be strengthened throughout the world. Please convey this invitation to members of your stakes, wards, and branches beforehand so they can prayerfully consider the focus of their fast. Over the course of 2026, members are also invited to participate in service projects and activities associated with the 250th anniversary observance, including projects organized through Just Serve and Family Search. Sincerely, the First Presidency, Dallin H. Oaks, Henry B. Eyring, D. Todd Christofferson. So this is the latest development that I'm aware of. Let's go back to my spreadsheet and I'll unhide these rows. And I'm just going to keep this as a separate timeline because maybe there's a lot more to come. Maybe not, but maybe there is. I want to document it. And that's what gave me the idea for this video is when I saw that this news article talking about the fast, I was like, okay, I've already seen a couple articles now talking about the church and America 250. It feels like there's a lot going on. I better get a grasp on exactly what has happened and gauge how big this is so far. And you let me know. Put it in the comments. Do you think there's going to be more special announcements? Like more celebrations or more activities? Or do you think the church is going to do more in regards to America 250? Let me know in the comments. The last thing I want to share with you is just part of a few quotes. This is my spreadsheet called Quotes A through Z. This is currently row 29 for America, cleansing of, destruction of, etc. I wanted to answer the question, is it true what some people believe in the church, people that put together these timelines of the second coming, that America has to be destroyed? It has to be cleansed, separate from the destruction and the cleansing that's coming with the second coming. My conclusion has been no. And it's based on quotes like this. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm just going to read parts of these. This is President Harold B. Lee, President of the Church, BYU Idaho Devotional, or I guess at that time it would have been Rick's College, October 25th, 1973. He says, I think we must be on the optimistic side. This is a great nation. This is a great country. This is the most favored of all lands. While it is true there are dangers and difficulties that lie ahead of us, we must not assume that we are going to lie down and watch the country go to ruin. We should not be heard to predict ills and calamities for the nation. And that's exactly what some people do. On the contrary, we should be providing optimistic support of the nation. Okay, later on, It is the negative, pessimistic comments about the nation that do as much harm as anything to the country today. Brethren, we must tell them in a positive way what they should be doing. We should not be so concerned about finding out what is wrong with America, but we should find out what is right about America and should be speaking optimistically and enthusiastically about America. Yes, men may fail, but this nation won't fail. I have faith in America. The next one is from Elder Marky Peterson of the Quorum of the 12, July 4th, 1976, at BYU. Eventually, America will be the center of the final gathering of God's people as the millennium approaches, and our flag will fly right on into that blessed time. That's all that I want to read from that one. I read this one recently. This is a story told by Elder Gerald N. Lund, Emeritus General Authority 70, about President Nelson when President Nelson was in the Quorum of the 12. He tells the story of going to lunch one day and he was sitting with other 70s, and this was during the Great Recession, and they were concerned about the way that the world was going and the government and the private sector, and it seemed like doom and gloom. President Nelson, at the time, Elder Nelson, went and sat with them, and then they asked him what he thought, and after thinking about it, this is what he said. Brethren, the Lord chose the United States of America as the place for the restoration of the gospel in our dispensation. He did that so we would have a base of religious freedom that would sustain the work of the restoration. Also, the financial affluence and the political stability of the United States makes it possible for our church to take the gospel to the world. That is a task that is not yet finished. Brethren, the Lord is at the helm. He will not let this work fail. I like that quite a bit. This was our recent president of the church before President Oaks. And then we'll finish with something that President Oaks said when he was first counselor in the first presidency to President Nelson. April 2021 General Conference, Defending Our Divinely Inspired Constitution. Our belief in divine inspiration gives Latter-day Saints a unique responsibility to uphold and defend the United States Constitution and principles of constitutionalism wherever we live. We should trust in the Lord and be positive about this nation's future. So I'm excited about the future of both the United States and also the world, because I think the second coming is soon. I think that all these events that we're witnessing are preparing us for that. And I think that America 250 has something to do with this timeline of the second coming. That all these things are converging. We're seeing things that we haven't seen before. It's an exciting time. This is a special time. We have entered, I think, a special season, especially in the year 2020 and afterwards. Okay, that's going to be it for this one. I'll talk to you guys later.